January 18th, 2024. This is the S&P 500 E-Futures Minis on the 2000 tick chart using the NinjaTrader 8 platform. This is how I saw the charts today. There's only one piece of economic data that came out around 5:30, which is about right here where my cursor is. It was the unemployment claims. They come out every Thursday. Didn't really create the market move, or didn't really create that much of a market move. Prices, for the most part, stayed range bound, and then there was kind of a midday rally, 2 legs up, and then a close at the end. So I took a total of 1 trade today. There weren't too many setups. There were a few almost setups. Now, depending if how you took the trades or how you saw the setups, if the almost setups were good enough for you, then you probably saw a lot more trades than I did. Otherwise, I just said for one reason or another, I didn't like the setup. Maybe with more experience, I'd get better at identifying the almost setups as being good enough. So I'm going to go into the trades now. I imagine with my experience as I get better, the almost setups, I'll probably have a better idea of context and know that maybe the almost setups are actually pretty decent, pretty safe to take. It was a pre-market. Pre-market, there was kind of this rally. There's no news yet. It just rallied up, and then it kind of just oscillates, sold off. I did have the pre-market lows and the pre-market highs drawn, but as you can see, they really weren't that important, especially the lows, ultimately at the end of the day. So I did draw this tighter range a little bit later, and I had a bunch of smaller, I guess, trading ranges, as you're going to see. So market opens. Right now, I'm just watching and waiting. I do see a potential support here, and I wasn't sure where the top of the range was. I did have it a little bit higher at one time. It chopped around, and it looked like it was kind of respecting some kind of support resistance here. Support definitely around here. You could have had it lower, but I like to hear it could have had more touches. Resistance is a little bit questionable, so I wasn't too sure. EMA is pretty flat, so I'm just kind of following range rules. I saw a new high here. It's a first entry long pullback. Here creates a second entry long. Second entry long, I would say, is an almost setup. So as this is happening, depending on what you thought the bottom of the range was, whether here or even lower, you could see potential 1, 2, 3 touches, a triple test. The signal bar isn't that great. It's decent. And I just really wasn't sure because there was, touching the bottom in one push up, pull back, second push up, and then there's one push down, pull back, potentially a second push down. But I just wanted a more bullish signal bar. And by the time this one formed, I felt like the trade, I didn't want to chase it because I knew if I put my entry down here, as you can see, I wouldn't have gotten filled. Maybe I would have gotten filled, but it felt like the move has already been made without me, so I just had to sit back. Prices then continue chopping. At this point, I drew the top of the range. I dragged it down to here because it looked like it had a little bit more touches. Again, it respects the bottom of this range, and then it starts to break through. So I have new high, first entry long, second entry long, failure. But here, it's just a little congested. I don't know if it's going to be a fail breakout. Price is going to move back in, or it's going to be a breakout pullback. Plus, the candles are pretty tightly bound together. There's no clear breakout, so I just kind of sat and waited. Looks like it is respecting the EMA. So EMA is keeping prices down. You do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, but nothing here tells me to go long. Technically, you could have gone long here, but it feels like, prices are starting to trend down. So I didn't really feel too keen on marking it or taking a trade. It just happened to be a second entry long, so I didn't really give it any too much thought about it. Prices then continue moving, creates a micro triple bottom here, creates a first entry short, pullback. Here, it's about to create, well, you don't know yet, but I'm thinking it could create a second entry short, and it confirms a second entry short here. So this is also an almost setup. So had this signal bar been bearish, then it would have been a good setup. I did see potentially a resistance here, like a triple test resistance. The thing with the triple test resistance is if this candle came up and stopped pretty much right where these two guys are, or even a little lower, then I would have had more confidence in the triple test to go short. Plus, it needed to be a bearish bar. But since it was a bullish bar, technically it closed in the lower half. It did flash up, so it did spike higher than these two. So seeing this, even though I'm thinking there might be a second entry short, I am just waiting because this is not, everything isn't quite aligned. Then when you get the confirmation second entry short, I didn't want to take an entry just because, it feels like it came up, made a triple test, and continue going down, but I don't know if the EMA is going to hold. I had this trend line drawn. I don't know if it's going to bounce off here. So it's just a few little areas that are a little confusing for me, so I had to leave it alone. It looks like if I did take an entry, there's a possibility that I probably would have gotten my trade. And then here definitely would have confirmed and gotten the 1 or 2 points. Prices then continue moving. So I drew this overlapping trading range because it doesn't seem to be respecting this trading range anymore. And on the visual, you have a first entry long, pull back, second entry long. But this isn't a very good signal bar. And even the one before it wasn't very decisive either. It's a little neutral, and then this is definitely a doji. So if you took it on bigger visual as a first entry long, pull back, second entry long, nothing here is giving me much confidence to go long. Then when this guy forms, it definitely feels too late because remember, I was playing off of this potential range. So it feels like I might run into some kind of resistance here. Ends up working, but again, I don't know that at the time, so I'm okay with not taking that trade. And technically, you have a new low, first entry short, second entry short, or if you grouped it as one big move, first entry short, pull back, second entry short, nothing here is that clean to make me feel confident taking a short. Price then continue chopping. It's just kind of oscillating between these two overlapping trading ranges, or they just could be this big one here. In any case, it's kind of in the middle of the range, so I'm not too eager to take a trade. Prices then move up, almost touches the top, comes back down, flashes, and it now breaks out of these two blue trading ranges, bounces, makes a new high, first entry long, second entry long, failure. This failed second entry long. First of all, I'm thinking at this point, I'm thinking it wants to go up and test this highs because I don't have this gray channel drawn yet, or this gray range just yet. I was playing off of the blue one, so you ignore this gray one for now. And so I saw this as one push up, and I'm thinking there's a potential for a second push up. I didn't do anything because I wanted to see how this candle formed. And when it actually spiked one up and then flashed down, I thought, oh, it could be a failed second entry long. But as this was flashing, I was debating whether I wanted to enter before this candle closed or wait for this candle to close. So I decided to wait for the candle to close. It flashes down, then it pulls back a little bit. So that gives me a little bit of concern because I'm wondering if the EMA is starting to act as some kind of support, or it could be a breakout, pullback. It's going to break out and continue back upwards to, again, test this high. So since it kind of landed ambiguously slightly above the EMA, also slightly outside the range, I had to leave it alone. As you can see here, if I did enter here, looks like I would have gotten the fill and probably gotten the scalp, but I would have had to have acted quickly and put it one tick below or at the same lows as these two. I didn't do that though, I just wasn't too sure. It kind of consolidates and breaks out, flashes up, creates a new high, first entry long, creates a second entry long, and then a second entry long failure. So this is an almost setup as well. So I did draw this as a potential line coming down, and I had this a little bit tighter at first, and I treated this as an overshoot. Once the overshoot happened a second time, I extended it down to here. So it created a second entry long, and here it looks like it's about to fail. What I really wanted this candle to do was to push up, break past this descending green channel, touch the EMA, and then have a rejection. Then I would feel like, oh, okay, it's been exhausted, and I'm asking for a lot, but what I wanted was this to close bearish, more bearish. Then I would have thought, okay, this is a perfect setup. First entry long, second entry long, closes bearish, rejected off the EMA, broke out of this channel, so it's most likely going to fail and come back down. But since it rejected off of here, it's a little ambiguous. If anything, I would want at least a better signal bar. So after this one closed, then it definitely is too late to take this trade. So this could have been a missed opportunity, but again, I'm okay with missing this trade because it just wasn't quite aligned. I'm being extra picky just because lately my trading, I feel, has been not quite in tune with the market, so I'm just being extra careful. Prices then continue down. It breaks out and starts pushing up. I saw this as a new low. It's a first entry short, pullback, second entry short, and here It's a second entry short, and I'm thinking there's a potential failure. It's a good signal bar for failure. Now, it does feel like there's not quite enough room to break out to the top. Plus, I'm already running against the high of this channel because originally I had this channel tighter here, but then it started to break out and dwell outside, so I dragged it up to here. And then it broke out again right here, so I wanted to try to encapsulate that, and I dragged it up to here. Now here, it doesn't feel like there's two things I'm going to run into, potentially resistance at this high and potentially the top of this channel. So that made me a little bit cautious. Here, after this candle opened and closed, I noticed it didn't tick above, so then I just abandoned the idea of taking a trade to the long side completely, just because it shows here on the life of this candle, it had a lot of trouble just breaking one tick above. Here it finally does, but then of course you don't know. You'd have to, bank off of this candle being good enough, but now it's showing like it might be reversing between this one and this one, and continues moving, breaks out. So here I do start thinking there's potentially some kind of support, maybe down here and maybe up here. So it comes back down. It has a new high, first entry long pullback. Here's a second entry long. Now I don't want to go long here, and I don't want to go short for a failed second entry short. Looks like it went long, so I missed the trade, but it's okay. Here, this was kind of interesting. This is very side-by-side price action, meaning, well, what I meant to say is these candles are very, very congested. There's a huge tug of war going on right here because you have a doji, a hammer candle, doji. But I did see this as a new high, and I saw this as a new low. So I saw this first entry short. On the life of this candle, it bumps up and then flashes down. So this creates a second entry short, a hidden second entry short. Now, I like that it moved one tick above the signal bar, which would be this guy here. Then it flushed down strongly, plus it flushed down below the EMA. And the way I saw it was also there's a new high here, first entry long, second entry long, all the way up to here. This could be creating a lower high. So this could be a second entry short hidden. And let me just go ahead and type it in as a lower high. What gave me pause, I think in the end, after I thought about it, it's a possible trade, but what gave me pause in real time was seeing this. And then finally, when this one flashed and formed, the risk is slightly larger now because this is a pretty big candle. This is almost 4 ticks. It's like 3.5. So not 4 ticks, 3.5 points. So I would have to put my stop up here. And if I put my entry here, I don't know if this next candle is going to pick me up. If I put it down here, then I feel like there's no real room and momentum to get out here. So I was a little unsure. I saw this as a break of this yellow channel. One attempt up, pull back. There could be a second attempt up, or this right here could have been the second attempt. So knowing all that, I think if I was a little bit more aggressive, I probably would have put my entry one tick below either, or one tick matching the low here, or one tick matching the low here. As you can see, if I took it on the one tick below here, super conservative, I may or may not have gotten filled. If I put it one tick here, I definitely would have gotten filled. And if I was just super aggressive and risky, I would have put it right here, gotten filled, and probably gotten my scalp. But the thing I don't like about one tick or one tick below here, the matching low here, is I feel like I don't know if it's going to bounce off of this potential lower end here. Turns out it would have worked. So this is a possible trade I think I missed, over analyzing and not just taking it for what it was worth. So it breaks out of the green channel, makes a new low, kind of consolidates. Here it creates a new low. It's a first entry short. Here it creates a second entry short possibility. So you don't know it is yet. It is the top of this potential range. It's a good signal bar. There's enough room from here down to the bottom, but I was unsure of the price action. The reason being is after the break of this green one, it made a new low now. Now it's making one push up, pull back, second push up. There could be, if the range is taking precedence versus the trend line, then there could be another push down, but it is getting pretty close to the bottom already. And so I wasn't really quite sure, so I left it alone. It looks like it would have worked though. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is a possible trade, a little more aggressive. Breaks out, fail breakout, pushes back in, first entry short, second entry short. This is a second entry short. The signal bar here is so-so. It had an overshoot here and an overshoot here. And at this point, I was thinking maybe it's a slightly bigger range, but I wasn't sure, so I didn't mark it. Came down, it's a new high. It's the first entry long, second entry long, but this is a bad signal bar to go long on. Breaks down and breaks through, kind of pushes down to here. This is where I thought the new larger range could have been, this one here and this one here. So then prices continue moving up. It's a new low, first entry short, second entry short. Here's a little bit too congested. This is your signal bar for the second entry short and the confirmation second entry short here, except it bounced and couldn't break through the EMA. Even though it's range rules right now, I would like to have seen this break a little bit more decisively. Then prices again continue moving down. You have a new high, first entry long, second entry long here. That's a bad signal bar. So this is actually where I take my first trade as a new low. First one and only trade, new low. It's a first entry short, push up. Technically you have a second entry short here, but I saw this as one leg up, pull back, second leg up. I also saw this as potentially being in a range because it looks like it's starting to respect some kind of resistance here along with the EMA. I saw this visual first entry short, pull back, second entry short. I like that this candle engulfed this previous candle. So this is the signal bar, it engulfed it and it closed below its low. So this is a very strong push down. So I like that. I saw it as a triple test. So I entered at the low of the original signal bar, which is right here. Hard to see, but there's a little purple candle here. I was just going for 1 point before I got to the bottom, but it looks like if you had gone for 2 points, you would have to sweat it out on this candle, but you would have gotten your second point. And prices continue moving. I definitely didn't want to push it past this low, just because you're clearly in a range now. You're unsure if you're in a range here, but then here you're confirmed in a range. So just going for the quick conservative, quick scalp, I thought was good enough. Then prices continue chopping, give a new low, first entry short, second entry short. It's a good signal bar to go short here. And this is a little deceiving. I don't like going short here though, because it's an inside bar. Also, I want to point out that you have a new high here. Technically, you have a first entry long, pullback, second entry long here. Or you can see a visual first entry long, pullback, second entry long. In either case, it does feel like it's kind of in the middle of the range. It is bouncing off the bottom, so you do potentially have a recovery, like a bounce back up. So if you took a long here, it might have worked. Here, clearly it does work. It's been confirmed. What I wanted, though, was this bar to close more bullish. Then I would have seen it as a clear, especially when I'm counting this, because technically it's a first entry long, second entry long, third entry long. But if I count it as a visual, I want it a little bit cleaner setup. The prices continue moving, starts flashing up. I don't see anything going forward till the close. I don't see anything too great as a setup. It breaks out, continues moving up, consolidates here. It starts tracking up here. The last trade that I saw was potentially here, but since you have a very strong trend going up, had the EMA actually been closer and touched it, I would have felt more confident because you have first entry long, second entry long. This is a good signal bar. The problem is it is very close to the highs. You would have enough for a quick 1 point scalp, but it is kind of floating above the EMA pretty high. Now, granted, depending on how you drew this, if you drew it kind of wider, then there would have been no contact. It would have been something like this. So it's really far away. If you drew it tight like I did, there's a potential trade here, but it felt just a little bit risky. Not quite there. I needed, if this trend continues further, the next time something like this comes back and touches and creates this great second entry or good signal bar like this, then I would have felt more confident taking the trade. I do also want to point out that at this point, I do have the range drawn like this, but I wasn't really sure how valid it was because it did have one touch, an overshoot here, definitely overshoot here, and overshoot here. So this is kind of a vague resistance, so it's not too clear for me. So although there's a potential trade here, I left it alone and it looked like it would have worked. Then prices then continue moving. It's getting into the last hour. You do have a new high, first entry long, second entry long. Second entry long isn't a very good signal bar to go long on. Prices then continue moving down. Technically, you have a new high here. You just kind of group this as a localized new high, so this is a one leg down. And I'm seeing a second push up to see if it tests this. It almost does, but it might have been just good enough. It kind of chops around. It makes this really strong congestion. So I drew this as a resistance and I drew this as a support, but then it violated it here and it came back in. So I wasn't too keen on what the support line was, but I was pretty firm and confident at the resistance up here. But unfortunately, there's no setup that I liked. It broke out, continues chopping. You don't really have any clean second entries. Kind of breaks out, comes back in. You do have a new high here, first entry long, second entry long. This is a twin bar, same lows and same highs. So it doesn't really give me confidence on which direction it's going to go. So I'd leave it alone. Plus, it is getting late in the day. And then it just kind of pushes and kind of chops around into the close. So it's kind of how I saw the charts today. I took one trade, and there was probably one other possible trade. I would say it's probably this guy here, the second entry short, off the top of the trading range, as well as potentially this trade here that is hidden second entry short and a lower high, depending on how you do the count. But I don't think I was quite aware or in tune to see it in time to take the trade. And then there were some almost setups. Almost setups being if you're more aggressive, there's probably good enough for you. But for me, I was kind of picky and I didn't like it for one reason or another. So I missed out on some trades. And as I get better, hopefully those almost setups will have more background and be more keen on identifying and then knowing that they're good enough. So hopefully that was helpful.